And it says they have both started. All right. So I want to welcome everybody to today's session of Midday Cafe. We have a great session planned for today as we talk about empowering care workers with Microsoft Teams. And I'm very excited. We have two great guests that are going to be taking us through all that. And I'm going to turn it over to them. But we have both Erin Spencer and Laura Burgmeier that will be speaking and taking over the session momentarily. A couple of quick housekeeping items. We have everybody muted when you enter. If you would like to speak, ask a question, feel free to use the raise your hand icon over here. You know, you have your, like, for example, I just raised my hand. There we go. And I'm going to unraise it. And you can also use that to do things like say you like something, applaud, or you're just shocked and surprised, whatever the case might be. So we welcome interaction. So please raise your hands. We'll be looking for those as we go through. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to go off video. I will be on mute, but I will be following along to help facilitate and moderate. So with that, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. I am just going to ask, can you all see my screen now?
I can see it, Erin.
Okay, awesome. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to the Midday Cafe. Today, we will be covering how you can empower care team communication with Microsoft Teams. I'm Erin Spencer. I'm a Teams technical specialist supporting healthcare payers and providers, and I'm joined with Laura Burgmeier. Laura, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Burgmeier. I'm a director on the Frontline worker space for Microsoft and our worldwide commercial business under the Modern Work umbrella.
Awesome. And together we have helped dozens of different healthcare organizations improve their clinical collaboration with Teams. Laura, I really wanted to start with what the frontline worker experience is. I think the interesting piece is that frontline workers, their workloads are very different from traditional knowledge workers. Can you touch on Microsoft's frontline worker strategy and a little bit on how it maybe differs from our traditional team strategy?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so, frontline workers in general is a 2 billion person workforce, with 80% of the workforce in the world being a frontline worker. 88% of organizations are employing frontline workers. And, as such, Microsoft really wanted to identify and find a way to serve up those different sort of the workforce than what we've traditionally done with the information workforce. We've built our business around things like PowerPoint, Word, Excel, Outlook, all of those great tools that we all know and use every day. But in a traditional frontline worker setting, these folks aren't typically outfitted with technology to do their job. Microsoft recognized that and went to work on building up a solution that will support those folks, recognizing that, their day job doesn't mean sitting behind the desk and doing PowerPoint work or Outlook or Excel even. Their day job is to interface, in this case, with the patient. So how do we support those folks, giving them the great technology and tools that our information workers have traditionally always used, making it so it's not as expensive as what you would see from an information worker where they sit behind a desk all day long and use our services all day long. So how do we enable them with technology and allow them to do their job in quite frankly, some different ways than they've done before? And also improve, sort of that cross collaboration between not only what they're doing with their patient, but also what's going on with the information workers in the organization as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I love when I was first learning about what this frontline worker experience meant. I loved when you used the deskless worker because at the end of the day, especially in the clinical space, nurses and people on care team, they're not behind a desk, just like you said. They really are the deskless worker. They're on, their iPhones or Android devices, or they're on like a tablet, or, they're walking around with a cart that also has their EMR on it. So it's great to see that Microsoft is recognizing that there's this entirely different profile of a worker, and really trying to cater the experience around them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and Laura, you actually work with all healthcare and life sciences. I really just focus on the provider space, but can you give me an idea of some of the different types of profiles of end users that really fit our frontline worker strategy in healthcare?
Yeah. So I loved what you said before, Erin, and identifying that these folks are not traditionally sitting behind a desk, deskless workers. They're people that stand, walk, and compute. And so in the health and life sciences space, we look at providers and they're your typical, clinicians, right? They knew about frontline worker solutions long before we did even. And so it's your clinicians, your doctors, your nurses. In some of our other health and life sciences customers, I work with people that are maybe doing manufacturing, floor shop work. Um, Pharma, big pharma, we're talking about manufacturing there, maybe R&D. Those types of people are really their main focus is around, helping either create a solution from manufacturing or interfacing with the patient. It's not sitting behind a desk. So yeah, we try to build this solution with them in mind, and recognizing that they're not going to be 80% or more sitting behind a desk using the traditional products.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think it's so interesting that when I think of healthcare, I think of a nurse and a doctor, right? But there's
Yeah.
actually so many more people that really are part of that care team for a patient, whether that be in pharma, your pharmacist, whether that be, a different type of frontline worker that maybe doesn't fit that initial profile that you're thinking of. Um,
Yeah. In healthcare, we see a lot of different ones that you wouldn't think of, right? There's these ancillary roles that,
right.
they've typically only been able to communicate with people through going into the break room and looking at a whiteboard or a corkboard. Maybe they have some devices that they use, like maybe it's a personal device that's, a phone, and they're using old school texting. So there are people like cafeteria workers, they're cleaning staff, they're maintenance staff. We have some health and life sciences customers that are retail companies and have pharmacies inside of their retail companies, and they, are traditional, a store associate or a pharmacist. So those are some of the different sort of ancillary roles that you don't typically think of when you're thinking of the provider space. And definitely a market that we want to help address. I think they feel more empowered and satisfied in their jobs. There's evidence to show that when you do give them the right tools in order to connect back with their teammates or corporate office, if you will.
Yeah. Thank you. I think one of the biggest things that organizations and different IT leaders will ask me is, "Hey, this is great, but I'm almost so overwhelmed. Like, how do I even get started?" And so I like to tell them, we want to take you through a crawl, walk, run. And I really think the easiest way to start helping these organizations crawl is through secure messaging, right? It's probably the most common feature on Teams that we see people use every day. And with Teams, it's HIPAA compliant, it's high trust certified. So that means it's something that really can empower those care team members to collaborate in a secure way. And I also think, I'll get some clinicians that say, well, we have our EMR chat. And just as you were kind of saying before, the EMR chat is great for people who are in the EMR, but there are still so many different reasons and so many different use cases where people within an organization need to be able to collaborate outside of the EMR. Like when you were talking about, cafeteria members, or there's a patient care tech who might not be in the EMR, but they need to know that this patient needs, their bed sheets changed in their room. So there are plenty of different use cases really where this comes in to really supplement what the EMR experience is.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, I mean, I think I love the idea of the crawl, walk, run approach. I see a lot of our providers, simply start with chat. And by starting with chat alone inside of Teams, I think there's this innate, it's so simplistic in how it's set up that it innately will get them using other features inside of Teams. So just chatting one-on-one with people to get their job done faster is certainly a great crawl approach. But after you do that crawling for a little while, you start to learn and get the gist of how else Teams can really help you be more effective. And you start doing cross collaboration, and especially on the provider side, I think that is, and the clinician side specifically, a way that I see people kind of building off of what they've already started on, which was that very simplistic, let's just light up chat inside of Teams and see where that takes us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can even kind of enhance the chat experience to more of a walk or a run where we can actually use Teams to connect back to your EMR and create a simple chat bot inside of Teams where clinicians can use it to chat the bot about patient information, and actually help them to set up push notifications through that bot when labs or different test results are completed for their patient. So again, there's even a crawl, walk, run to how we help those end users chat. I
Absolutely.
wanted to ask you, it feels like there's so many different ancillary tools within the healthcare setting that can be really overwhelming for those clinicians and care team members. Can you touch on a little bit about how Teams has sort of solved some of that?
Be a little more specific in your question, Erin. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. So I mean like the different kind of how we've provided, a lot of different tools really within one space, whether that be like shifts or walkie-talkie or the
Oh, gotcha,
whiteboard
gotcha,
features,
gotcha.
kind of bringing everything into one tool.
Yeah. So, again, going back to this crawl, walk, run approach, there are so many features inside of Teams that, you'll find are easy to implement next. So, as Erin mentioned, shifts. Being able to set up easily a shift report that you can do inside of Teams that kind of keeps Teams as a single pane of glass space that you work in all day long. There's integration with other software that you can put inside of Teams as well. Walkie-talkie is a feature where you literally use your mobile device, with some companies like Samsung and Zebra that have devices that have a button on it that's a push-to-talk technology and allows you to easily communicate. So in Erin's example before, if there's cleanup needed on, I don't know, floor 5, room 2, 530, you could easily use that push to talk technology on the Zebra device here, and access your teammate or access a colleague very quickly, in traditional sort of walkie-talkie format, all
Yeah,
backed by Teams. So, yeah,
yeah, I really think that's where the value, I think these things, there's a lot of solutions that are out there in healthcare for each of these solutions separately. But really where the value of Teams come in is where it's all consolidated, right? So
yeah,
I remember going into the hospital once, and I mean, my nurse had her phone, right? And then she also had this scanning device because you have to scan things when you're in the patient room. And then she also has this cart that she has to roll around to the different rooms with how she does her EMR stuff. And it was so much stuff. And,
yeah.
she even had one of those, push to talk like necklaces around her neck that was walkie talkie. I mean, it was so many
And all the
devices.
sign-in and stuff that they need, the cards and everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So really where that value comes in is Teams being able to consolidate so much of that to where you're not having to carry around 5 different devices just to get your job done.
absolutely,
And one of
absolutely.
the other pieces when we think of communication and the care team is that your care team isn't just inside your organization, right? For that patient. Sometimes you need to be able to communicate with your patient's primary care physician, or you need to be able to call the pharmacy to make sure that they have the right prescription, or you need to connect with, an LTAC, a long-term care facility, if that's where the next discharge planning is for your patient. And a lot of those places are outside of your immediate organization, but you still need to be able to collaborate with them, and they're still part of that critical care team for your patient. And so with Teams, there's actually the ability to add a phone number where it's like a work phone number, and you can even have it on your phone. It's a separate app, but you can make and receive calls in order to extend that collaboration to your entire care team for that patient. So Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, no, I didn't know if there was a question for me. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's awesome technology there that you can use to better collaborate. I was just, my mind was kind of going to the concept of virtual rounding too. I don't know if you were going to speak to that a little bit, but, certainly in the days of COVID where we're trying to, minimize the contamination, if you will, between the clinician and patient, virtual rounding through Teams has been a great source for our clinicians, and certainly a use case that I see happening a lot inside of healthcare. Oh, there you go. You're reading my
Yeah,
mind.
absolutely. I know you led me to the next thing. And really, I know we've touched a lot on what that care team communication can look like with teams, but there are so many other use cases where we've really helped empower those care teams in general collaboration within teams. I know, Laura, you just touched on some of that virtual rounding. I think, discharge planning is also something that's really critical where you can get all of that care team engaged that might not all have access to the same EMR really in one place. And, you already touched on some things like shift management. There's also tasks that you can be able to really add all of that in one place.
Assigning tasks through Teams is super easy, and it's a great way to get things done in a non-traditional way that maybe have done just through a whiteboard in the past. Now you have a way and a record and a way to look back on who's done what when. That's all digitized right through Teams. Again, in that single pane of glass, Teams really becomes almost like your operating system, if you will, where you launch Teams to begin your day, and you can literally live inside of that for most of your day in the clinician space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, COVID really brought about, how we strategize around virtual visits. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of different solutions out there, but I really love the new capability to be able to launch a Teams meeting in your different EMR systems. So, it's not just that it's the place where we have a lot of things, but it's also the place where we can connect you to your other tools. And so I think that that's been really valuable for a lot of the healthcare organizations that I support.
And I think about too, Erin, I think about when we adopted Teams here at Microsoft and in my world. My world traditionally was, I get over 200 emails a day. I send about, 150 or so emails a day. And, when we started adopting Teams here at Microsoft, it was like a light switch went on. And, our management said, this is the way we're going to communicate now. We're going to communicate via Teams. So, okay, I want to get my job done and I want to do it well. So I learned to start watching messaging coming in through Teams instead of email. And I think I was just telling you this story the other day, Erin, but I watched my, 100, 150 emails that I send a day. I literally sent 5 emails the other day. And I'm like, wow, that transition happened and it happened easily and fast. And I am so much more productive now as a result of being able to just send a quick chat. I don't have to have this long drawn out email anymore. I can communicate through Teams channels now. And I think that is a huge value to especially the clinicians, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely noticed that as well. And I really wanted to get to some resources that we have for people because I know that you and I kind of had some examples and talked about a little bit about the crawl, walk, run. But if you all are interested in learning more about how you can use Microsoft Teams for frontline workers, we've provided some resources for you. So there's a couple different links, and we'll be sure to add those to the post that comes out later about frontline workers. If you need help with onboarding and deployment or adoption assistance, Fast Track is a great resource that's available to you. And then we also have an Enable Frontline workshop. Laura, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to. It's a great free offering to our customers. It's uh, done in collaboration with probably about 12 different partners of Microsoft that have gone through extensive training around our frontline worker solutions. It can be typically about a half day to some of them have gone up to 2 days, depending on what the needs are of the customer. But it's really a time to discover, envision, and then plan for how you're going to roll out your frontline worker solutions from Microsoft. Great partnerships. I've sat through several of these now, and I've never had anybody complain about the Frontline Worker Workshop. It's really in depth, and these partners are very skilled around knowing how to really define what those use cases are. How are we going to do this crawl, walk, run approach that Erin was talking about? Envision it and then really plan for it. So highly recommend the workshops that we do with our partners around this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that, we can say at a high level, here's what we think, and here's what we've seen at other healthcare organizations, but we also recognize that each healthcare organization is different and has their own use cases. And so we would definitely recommend taking advantage of this workshop so that you can really map out, what it is that your organization needs. And with that, I mean, we're happy to answer any questions and kind of open it up to the audience.
Yeah, if you have a question, just go ahead, raise your hand to indicate that, and I will bring you off mute, and you'll be able to speak to today's speakers.
Or you can drop it in the chat if you're a little microphone shy.
Don't be shy.
True too. All right, everybody's pretty quiet. I guess we'll call that a wrap. So do you have anything else? You said provide the links, et cetera, for the post?
Yep. We'll make sure to provide these links so that you can get access to more information.
Great. So for those who attended, you can let your colleagues know. We'll be posting that shortly, hopefully today. Depends on my schedule, if I can get free. But otherwise, it will definitely be up to tomorrow morning at the latest. So with that, I want to thank today's speakers and thank everybody who did attend, and ask everyone to have a great day, great rest of the week. And if you look for next week's event, I'll be posting that tomorrow along with the recording from today. So thank you from MidDay Cafe Live, and have a great day, everyone. And
Thanks,
we are
everyone.
going to
Awesome. Thank you.
stop recording now.